Welcome to A Heart for Home Education. My name is America, and I am mother and home educator to my 3 children, ages 10, 8, and 6, with 1 on the way. Today, I am giving you a glimpse into what our day looks like with my Year 1 student who is 6. As Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, we wait to start formal academics until the child is 6. They're doing plenty of learning before 6, just typically not sitting at the school table with formal academics unless they want to. With the extra year of quiet growing, as Charlotte Mason calls it, I've found my children to be more than ready when we begin formal lessons. My Year 1 student's day looks different than what my very first Year 1 student's day would have looked like, because my first was the only student I had to teach, and I could cater, all of the readings to him and make sure the day was really crafted to what he needed. Whereas I have 2 other students who are older, and so I have to kind of adjust our schedule to accommodate all of my students. Now, this particular day was interesting because my oldest son was at drop-off co-op, so I just have my 2 younger children here, and this happens every Thursday. So every Thursday, my oldest son does drop off co-op, and I stay back with the younger 2, and then in the afternoon, my younger 2 have 1 class at the end of the day, and I do pickup for my friends' kids, so it works out really well. So on this day, we started our formal school day with our benediction time, our morning time that we shared before this. So we start each morning with piety, with worshiping the Lord, with focusing our hearts on the Lord. So we read scripture, we pray, we usually sing hymns and psalms, and then we also do a lot of other enrichment during our morning time together. So poetry, fables, composer studies, and lots of other family together subjects that we do, such as some of our geography and our family read-alouds. And after each of those readings, I ask my 6-year-old to narrate, and he usually narrates first, unless he is struggling to narrate. And then I have one of my older children narrate first, and then he will come in with his narration. Other times, if he's struggling to narrate, which really isn't often, but it's just some more challenging reads, or if it was a longer chapter and maybe I forgot to stop in the middle of it, which is hard to remember to do. I'm not quite in the habit of doing it because this is my first year with a Year 1 in 2 years. So it's been challenging to try to remember to stop and pause and ask for narrations within a longer chapter of something so that my Year 1 student has more of a chance of being able to narrate more thoroughly. I do just want to say that my homeschool table is never this cleared off during a school day. This was really a gem kind of a day because my son decided to clean the playroom for me, and he did like a detailed clean, like picking up tiny Legos or like pieces of dried up Play-Doh and pencils off the ground. Like, he did a really thorough and good job, but this is not a realistic picture of what my homeschool table looks like on a typical day. Normally there are, books for each child stacked up. There's Matthew C blocks and, pencils. And it's a real struggle to try to keep the homeschool table orderly. And I would say most of the days I don't really win that battle. So we started our formal school day off with reading. And you guys know that I love using Reading Reflex, which is a phonographics speech-to-print reading curriculum. And at the end of this video, I am going to walk through lesson ideas for the advanced code of Reading Reflex. So I know a lot of people have been asking for that, and so that will be at the end of this video. I'll flip the camera around and give you a lot of examples of the lessons that I do. But you can see here that we are mapping out words on the whiteboard. And so I break up the advanced code that we're currently working on into the different spellings. And then I tell him which category to put the word in, and he spells the word using that advanced code. If you haven't heard of Reading Reflex, then I'm sure none of that made sense to you. But if you have used Reading Reflex in the past or know what I'm speaking about, then hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So that's how we did our word mapping today. A lot of times we'll do that on the whiteboard at our seats or in his notebook, or he can even map out words on the tablet using a Letter Tiles app. The Letter Tiles app that I use is from All About Reading, and I purchased this a long time ago when my oldest was using All About Reading, and it's proved to be pretty helpful. I also have the physical letter tiles from All About Reading, and sometimes we will map out words using those. And so once we have mapped out a lot of these words, we will move on to just reading a story. Right now, he is reading an old reader that I believe my mother-in-law gave me, that she used with her kids when she homeschooled. I really don't know where it came from, but it's called Jack and Janet. I don't know if it's in print anymore, but my son has really loved it. He's loved that it's the same characters throughout the book. We still very much use the American language series readers, and I love using those, but he is just on a roll with this particular reader. He really likes that it's the same characters all throughout the story. So he really enjoys his reading lessons each day. So typically these take probably 25 minutes. I think on this day we probably spent 30 minutes reading because he loves it so much and he's interested. And because we have more time, because my oldest is, out of the house. If he struggled through his reading lessons, I probably would only do a reading lesson for about 15 minutes per day. But because he loves them and enjoys them, and because the activity is varied between writing and then, the physical act of reading, it feels more manageable to stack those activities because he's not just reading the entire time. But again, he really enjoys this. So if your 6-year-old isn't enjoying reading lessons, and I have definitely had children in the past who have not enjoyed reading lessons as much as he does, I would keep them to 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the max, and try to make sure that it is an engaging lesson where he is able to move things around, maybe get up and move around himself, use his hands, things like that. Like not just 20 minutes reading out of a book for a 6-year-old unless they really enjoy it. And then after a reading lesson, I often encourage my son to go jump on our little indoor trampoline. It's actually a rebounder, but a kid's indoor trampoline would work just as well. But a movement break is really helpful for such little kids, and especially boys. They just, need to move their bodies, in my experience, a little bit more. And so encouraging him to maybe go do a quick chore or get a snack if it's time. But he really likes to just jump on the trampoline. So usually that's what I send him over to do. And then we start on math. And we are at the end of the primer book for Math UC. We'll probably be finishing it up within the next day or two. But he really enjoys this curriculum. I really enjoy it. I really like that it's the same manipulatives for both of my kids and the same manipulatives every day. And I'm not like chasing down different stacks of cards and card decks and changing things out and, using multiple different manipulatives per lesson. If I just had one student, which when my oldest was 6, I used Math with Confidence and I loved it. It was my favorite curriculum. But now that I have 3 students, I just cannot manage all of the different materials that are used throughout Math with Confidence. I think it's an amazing curriculum. And I think it's the best math curriculum out there. And if you just have one student, I genuinely think that you should use it. But because I have 3 students and because I have a baby on the way, this curriculum is such a great choice and such a great fit for us. We've really loved it. And then after math, he just has his copywork and handwriting left for the day. So usually what I do is just copy down 2 sentences from the book that he read that day, or from a book that utilizes the advanced code that we're working on that he might need more practice with. And then I will try to mention 1 or 2 things that I would like to see in his copywork. So for a while, I was asking him to make sure that if my letters didn't touch that middle dotted line that his didn't either, or just trying to match the size of my letters. Sometimes it's like focusing on one letter formation, like, oh, can you make sure your A's look like this? Or can you make sure that your T's are crossed here? Something like that, something that he can focus on during his copy work, some type of skill that he can try to master through his copy work. And he will also do a page out of his handwriting book. And then really, that is it for his daily work. It is reading in phonics and math, and then some writing and handwriting. And that's all we focus on for our formal academics. And that is, of course, in addition to all of the rich literature that we read and the narrating of that literature. That is such an important piece. That narrating is oral composition for children. So in public schools, they might be having the children learn to write, I don't even know what. In kindergarten, the standards have increased so much. But I know by, first or second grade, they're supposed to be writing paragraphs or multiple sentences. And as Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, we just don't think that that is developmentally appropriate, and that a child can compose a lot more orally at this stage, which will eventually translate into written narrations, which is just kind of writing down your oral composition. And so that is the kind of progression of narration and why it's so important. The child is practicing reading comprehension, practicing vocabulary, practicing enunciating and speaking, and attuning to the text that we're reading. And then they make that story their own by narrating. So I think it's really the most important part of a Charlotte Mason education. And I've really seen the fruit of it through my 3 students at their various ages and abilities. And it's been so cool this year because my oldest son has begun written narrations and my youngest has just begun oral narrations. So to see kind of the difference, but kind of where we're headed to. In a few years, my 6-year-old will start his written narrations and I will get to see this process all over again. And it is so cool to be a part of. So a lot of the comments that I get are about year 1 or younger years of a Charlotte Mason education. And so I just kind of wanted to show you more about our year 1 routines, schedules, and the resources that we are using for year 1. So I primarily use the children's tradition, but as I've shared in previous videos, I've kind of had to modify it quite a bit for our family to make it a little bit more family friendly. And I've also pulled things from Ambleside Online and the Alveary, just other general Charlotte Mason resources and just good books. Really, that's my main priority, is just good books. And then as a year 1 student, this is his first formal introduction of phonics and his math. This day was a little bit more feasible to film, and it was a little bit different because my oldest son, who is 10, was at our local drop-off enrichment co-op for the day. My younger 2 are not doing it this semester, and so I have a day with just my younger 2 students. And so I try to focus more on those year 1 resources because I have the 2 younger ones combined in year 1 for a lot of things. And so I just kind of want to share some of the things that we did off camera, and that is our Bible and prayer, scripture memory. That is our morning time together, our benediction table, our morning basket, if you will, which looks a little different each day, but it is rooted in reading scripture together, praying together, usually singing hymns and psalms and folk songs together. We also do scripture memory and recitation. The next couple of things that I'll mention, I don't do every single day, but are throughout the week, and that would be things like poetry, fables, reading about the lives of missionaries and saints, and then typically doing our family read aloud. And so right now we are at the end of Peter Pan. And so we are reading this one pretty much every day because we're at the end, sometimes multiple times a day. I tried to finish this today, but we did not have quite enough time before my oldest got picked up for drop-off co-op. So we didn't quite get to finish this. We'll finish this afternoon or this evening, and I'm not sure where we are going to go next. I'm kind of using the children's tradition along with Ambleside Online all the way up to year 4 to kind of see what we can all read and enjoy together. I really, really love and value a family read aloud across the ages, and there are so many books that all of us can enjoy together that I want to enjoy them together while they're still these ages and while we can still gather around and enjoy this together. This is what we're reading now. If you have a suggestion for what we should read next, let me know, but I am just not quite sure yet. So let me know if you have any suggestions and I will look into them. And then this morning, since my oldest was gone, I have my younger two combined in the Alveary's Geography. You can buy this by itself. You do not have to have an Alveary membership. They sell multiple courses just a la carte that you can purchase by themselves. So I think that is so great, and I think more curriculum companies should do that rather than having like this huge price tag to buy the entire set of everything, when you might just know that Alveary might not be a good fit for everything, but it's a good fit for geography. I love this curriculum. I think it is awesome. I think it really bridges the gap between Charlotte Mason's elementary geography book and like how to actually teach this. And they have so many ideas in here, like really simple ideas, but ideas that I would not have thought of myself for a geography lesson. And so I will be honest, this is one that I set aside when I got pregnant in early November, because at that point I was trying to just do as much as we could together from the couch. And this sometimes has a couple of other resources or tools or supplies that you may use. And it also is too easy for my oldest son. And so I needed just what we could all do together. And so I leaned heavily on Paddle to the Sea, and we just wrapped that up last week. But I am going to be picking this one up again because I think it's a fantastic curriculum. I think it's a really fun year 1 curriculum. My kids really, really enjoy the lessons, and I enjoy them as well. There's only been like a couple lessons where I'm like, we're not gonna do that. That just sounds a little out there or whatever. But I really have enjoyed it. And most of the activities are really simple and doable and feasible. And so my plan is on the days when my oldest is at drop-off co-op, which is once a week, that we will do like 2 or 3 of these lessons. And they're very enjoyable lessons, so my kids don't feel like they're doing 2 or 3 lessons, and there's a lot of variety. Unless it's like a couple of reading lessons where I'm just reading out of the book, then maybe I'll break those up a little more. Today we were playing I Spy on the globe and looking at different continents and just noticing different things about the continents. Oh, and then we cut up an orange and kind of did the object lesson with the orange about if you cut it, can you lay it flat like a map? So we talked about that difference. And then we also did where you look around your house. So I went and hid in a different area of the house while they chose a building to look at outside of one of our windows. So one of our neighbors' houses, or my youngest did the playhouse out back, which really tricked me, or like our chicken coop. Or the next time my youngest chose the neighbor's house that is like 2-3 acres of a field away from us back here that I didn't even realize that he could see. So it was really fun. They had a lot of fun describing these buildings or houses to me, and it was very good for their habits of observation. And they also used some directional language. So it was great. It was a great activity. And these are the kinds of lessons that I really appreciate about the Alveary Geography, because you can see that the kids are making these relationships in their mind, and that they are engaging with their world around them. And so I just really like these because these are things that I would not have thought of to do myself. And then for our year 1 history, we have been following TCT's historical stream, which is not quite a stream, which is just kind of like historical picture books, which is good and fine. I do think that I prefer Charlotte Mason's approach of like actually following in a timeline. I think it's easier, it makes more sense. Even if the kids can't exactly form a timeline now, it still makes more sense to me to present it in such a way that is a timeline. And there have been some instances where my kids are like, wait, did he come first? Or like, when he was alive, was so-and-so alive? And so I can tell that there are some seeds of them trying to make sense of all of these stories that we've read, and maybe a more structured historical stream would benefit them. So all that to say, I like all of the TCT Year 1 historical picks. I like all of those. I wish they were more in order, but you could probably put them in historical order yourself if you are like me and would prefer that. But I also did not want to miss 50 Famous Stories Retold, by James Baldwin. This is part of the Ambleside Online Year 1 history stream, if I'm not mistaken. Now that I'm saying that out loud, I haven't looked in a long time, but I'm pretty sure this is one of the AO Year 1 books. Either way, I read this with my oldest when he was little and really enjoyed it, and really enjoyed the narrations that I got out of these stories. And so I wanted to revisit this. For me, I'm revisiting it. For my younger two, they haven't heard these stories before. And so I am using this as our history read with my younger two right now. So trying to read this one like 2 or 3 times a week. The stories are very short, but we really enjoy these. And now we will head over to look at the Reading Reflex lessons, and you can stay tuned if you are interested in that. So now I am going to share some ideas for Reading Reflex lessons for once you get to the advanced code. My original video on Reading Reflex had a bunch of ideas for the beginning code, and so today I'm just going to be sharing some of the ideas for the advanced code, kind of how I present the new codes. I kind of approach it in phases. So the first phase is just exposure to the new code. And so the code we're working with here is long A, which they don't really call it that, but that's what it is. The long A sound. There's a couple different ways that I will expose my son to the new advanced code. Sometimes I just tell him, today we're talking about sounds that say A. So all of these bolded sounds are going to say A. By now he kind of understands the way that these are written out, and so he can kind of just fly through and he will read them. You could also approach it as you read them, you read some of them, but you are just exposing them to how these sounds work in words. Another way that I like to introduce my child to these sounds is to say a bunch of words. Like I could just read some of these without him looking or knowing and just say, what sound did you hear in all of these words? And he would probably say A, and then say, today we are going to be learning all of the different ways that we can write A in a word. And so I really just expose my child. He just reads these. Usually that is our first step. We may just start with the gray box if we need to. Usually he wants to do both. And the way that all of these words are bolded and kind of coded really helps him to know where to say that A sound. Another option would be to photocopy this, or just, write the words down if you don't have a scanner. But just photocopy this and have your child go through and circle the sounds or highlight the sounds as they read them. So they're seeing where those sounds fit in all of these words. So you're just getting them familiar with saying the sound A as they read these words. That is what I always do for phase 1. Part of phase 1 could be using something like a Letter Tiles app. I've used All About Reading in the past. So I do have some of their letter tiles. I also have their Letter Tiles app on my iPad. And so a lot of times I will just use these along with a dry erase marker. So what I would do with this in the letter tiles, you could do this in the app or right here, is I would just give him the first word and he would move this here, read the word, move it down, read the word, just over and over again. And I get these words right from this list. So this might be like a day 2 activity that I would do with him. Or you can ask him to start building words, but you give him the sounds and you tell him which letter tile to use. So you wouldn't give him all of these and say, build the word play and have him choose. But you could say, can you build the word play using this way to spell A? And so he would go P-O-A and fill in his sounds like this. So there's some word building that the child can do. And really, to keep it simple, a lot of times I just have him read this each day for a week, and he really doesn't mind that. He enjoys that. So you could keep it as simple as just reading this each day, or you can kind of be a little more creative and a little more hands-on with some letter tiles. But that is kind of phase 1, and then we move on to phase 2, which the book doesn't really lay out these phases. It's just kind of how I have thought of approaching these lessons. So if you try to go through the book and find phase 1 or phase 2, you won't find that. But I've just kind of used that language to help me keep track of where I am in our lessons. The next thing that I do is a word sort. You could do this by hand, and sometimes we do it by hand. But for our main big sort, I like to photocopy the words just directly from the book and cut them out. And then on a piece of paper, just like this, write down the different ways. So this is the lesson on the sound, I believe. Yep, the lesson on the sound from page 232. And so this is after he's already been exposed to the word list and read it a couple of times. Usually I start with the words over here, and he will just pick them, read them, sort them. And that is one of our lessons for the day. And so I really like this activity, especially because it doesn't fatigue his hand as he's still working on those fine motor skills. So I like doing this word sort rather than the writing one, just because writing is a little bit harder for him. So he gets fatigued a lot quicker, so we can go through less words. So this one is a very good activity that we have done for each of the advanced codes. If you do not have a scanner, you could just copy the words by hand. Of course, that would take a lot longer. Or you can kind of sort them in real time. So have him look at the book, and then you can be the one to write them if your child has a hard time writing. As you saw on the video, we do this on the whiteboard where we will do word sorts. For all of these word sorting, word building, I don't correct his handwriting. It is more about reading right now. We have a different time where I correct handwriting. So the handwriting you see may startle you, but in a different context, I would probably correct a lot of this. But for now, we are just working on the phonics of this, the code of this. And so after we've done the physical word sort like I just showed you, we will also do a writing sort like this, and I will just go through that same word list and choose a handful of words to put wherever, and I tell him. So the word may, put that here, and he can either look from the word list or I'll tell him where to put it. At this stage, I'm not worried about him memorizing spelling rules or anything like that. This part is just so that he can visualize the words and how the A sound fits into these words. Now, this isn't for all of the lessons. Some of them lend themselves to this, some of them don't. But for example, O and ow, you can do kind of a word sort between the two. OW spelling ow, or OW spelling O, and sort words, build words into each category for those two word lists where they overlap. So for example, grow, does that say ow or does it say O? And they would say, it says O, and then they would build the word O, like this. And then the word cow, does it say ow or O? It says ow, so we put it over here. And so you could also do this with, say long A and short A, which the book doesn't refer to them as that, but, kind of the A sound or just ah. And so what this would look like is the word pal. Is that saying A or is it saying ah? He would say ah, like that. And then I would give him the word pale. Is that saying A or ah? And he would say A, and then I would say yes. And this is long A spelled A-I. And so P, A, O, like that. And so you could think of some examples that could fit in both of these, or they don't have to necessarily be similar words like this. And so I like to spend about a week on each box, depending on how long these boxes are. And as I am doing that, I also have him review these other boxes. So just have him read one row from here, one row from here, one from here. If that seems like too much, then, you know, pick two codes for that child to review each day, just so that you're not missing out on the codes that you've already learned. Consistent spiral review is very, very important. The last phase kind of is picking a reader that focuses on the code that you just read. So we are working on A sound, so we're going to pick On the Trail. And I picked up all of these used, all of these American language series books used, and I have found them to be so helpful, and they pair so well with Reading Reflex. These are the only quality readers that I found that break up their readers based on, I mean, they don't call it the code, but you know, the first one, Fun in the Sun, simple short vowels. That was great when we were learning the beginning code, as well as the consonant clusters book, Scamp and Tramp. And then as we moved to silent E, we used soft and white. And then controlled vowels, that's like our controlled vowels. We've used that a little bit. The one thing I've noticed is that Reading Reflex does not teach the AR code, but I've also noticed my child has been able to sound that out. Like he sounds out f-a-erm, and then he knows that that word is farm. It's interesting that they don't have it included, and it's interesting that I found that he has been able to sound that code out himself. And so we've done some stories from here. And then On the Trail is vowel digraphs, Sounds of the Sea is diphthong. So you just kind of choose whatever reader corresponds. And Reading Reflex does have little stories there. You can use them, but there's not very many. You can also order specific readers from their site, but I have found that these have been excellent. The readers on their site are pretty expensive for what you get. Finding these used is very easy. These are like $5-6 on Amazon. And so as we are learning a new code, I usually don't include the reader, because usually we do like those hands-on activities and then we read a story every single day. If we are just getting started with that code, I don't use a reader introducing the new code. I go back and review a different reader. So I'll go back and read an easier story from Soft and White. So he is reviewing the vowel E advanced code. Or I'll do At the Farm and have him review all of the sounds. And then I also do Copywork in this notebook. So I will pick usually 2 sentences from the story using the code, and that will be part of his copywork. So he's getting some exposure to actually writing these words out in context. And those are kind of the final stages of us working with a sound, and then we will move on to the next sound. That is my process and how I have implemented using Reading Reflex for the advanced code. Let me know down below if you have any other questions about this. If there's something else that you want to see, if there's something you don't understand, just let me know down below and I would be happy to continue to share. Well, I hope this look into my Year 1 students' day was helpful, and seeing some of the Reading Reflex lessons was helpful for you in potentially implementing those with your child. Let me know if you have any other questions about my Year 1 students' day, or if you would like to see a similar style video for my Year 3 or my Year 4 student. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video.